I recognize that. And we've got a couple of fun things going on tonight. You've all seen Brad Waller. He is in our webmaster. Fidel left, but he and Fidel worked a lot to get the website up and running. And Brad is running for councilperson in Redondo Beach. And was it 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
2 weeks, 1 hour. Not what I'm counting.
Yeah, I want to deliver my ballot well before the end. Pretty much done.
So you were bored and you had nothing to do and wanted
Yeah,
some
exactly.
you needed some aggravation in your life?
I need to spend an extra 20 hours a week doing something annoying.
You'll never find me doing what he's planning to do. So anyways, welcome. We have a new board member, Vice President Richard.
Hello.
And he's gonna talk tonight. And give us a chance to get to know him and him to get to know you. And I think it will be good. He's quite a person. And I think we're lucky to have him. We have volunteer programs. What the heck did I do here?
And before you move forward, did you intend to introduce Diana as well?
Oh, sure, yeah. So I'm not 100% today. And following Brad, Diana's gonna pick up the torch on our website. Great. And so here's Diana. And the client membership we have, we've got ways to work that up. I do want to mention we have volunteers is running them. And if you want to get outside and look at some pretty neat critters, that is it. Do you have dates for your Palos Verdes Blue Butterfly events?
Not yet, we'll wait to see when they start closing.
Okay, you got it real fast when they come out.
I'm going out there tomorrow.
Good.
So real quick on the volunteer programs. So a couple of you have already reached out, said you'd love to help monitor the snowy plovers. Thank you, guys. It says May up here, but we have one coming up immediately in March. And you haven't missed the opportunity to do that or take the online training. So reach out to me if you wanna do that. And then the other opportunity is, you'll see it in the news, the Humming when it comes out, but we do our spring and summer butterfly count each year. That's a lot of fun to go out and explore the canyons and count butterflies. So we'd invite you to join us. The first one will be in April, second Saturday of April. And you can reach out to me to learn more about that. No experience required. We have a cheat sheet of butterflies, and we'll send people out, people that have observed butterflies in the past. So you can pick them up pretty quick.
So what's, there you go.
Yeah.
What's really nice is, so we have the western snowy plover there. And then the Palos Verdes blue butterfly. And it's been so dry, I'm not real hopeful for a robust flight season this year. When Keith first arrived, I took him to the various properties so he'd know what was where. And we walked on a Chandler and we saw 3 Palos Verdes blue. I'm going, Keith's gonna think this is a real easy butterfly to see. It's gonna come back on you now this year. So, whoops. They are special status species. That means they're listed either by the feds or by the state. The Palos Verdes blue butterfly is listed as endangered by the federal
fence, yes.
I am sorry, folks, I'm really tired. It's not working. By the US Fish and Wildlife Service. And the western snowy plover could be listed under that or not. I don't recall
I
now.
think they're federally listed.
Threatened, yeah. If we're really good and we can enhance habitat, you can delist it. With the Elsagunda blue butterfly, I think they're seriously looking at it because all you have to do is put in is host plant.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's, the Elsagunda blue butterfly is found right on the ocean edge, wherever there's sea cliff buckwheat from Bologna Creek all the way down into Abalone Cove. And it's just a real cutie, about the size of my thumbnail. And it goes boingy, 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 all around the host plant, which is sea cliff buckwheat. The females fly further than the males, because when the butterflies come out from their pupa, the males will come out and they hang around the sea cliff buckwheat, because that's where the females come out to nectar. They both nectar off of the sea cliff buckwheat flowers. But when it comes to laying her eggs, the female will fly to find the best sea cliff buckwheat that she likes. And so they will fly quite a distance. I've seen them get stuck behind glass windows along a bunch of houses that overlook really good habitat for them. But you give them the buckwheat and they're happy, and they will reproduce. The they say when you get older, your brain slows down. Mine's come to a skidding halt. The South Bay Parkland Conservancy is doing a lot of work, along with some help from the Los Angeles Conservation Corps, to plant more habitat. And I think when I first started looking at these butterflies, the habitat has at least trebled. And the number of butterflies are much greater. Think 4th of July, and that's when you can see the Elsagunda blue butterfly. They are very tiny, and a real nice place is down at the Point Vicente. Oh, I've got to sit down quick.
Yes, Lamont as well.
And the Esplanade, especially Torrance Beach, that is the,
That whole area.
they are very dense at the Torrance Beach. And there's a nice walkway around it. It's a funny shaped thing. So that's a really good place. It's a little bit harder to see them on the Redondo Beach slope because it's so steep. Should not be walking into their habitat, and it's sandy, and by walking in there, you screw it all up. So, Torrance Beach and Point Vicente. So we happen to have a new vice president, which I'm thrilled about. And he's going to introduce himself to you by talking about what he's been doing. And
Great.
yeah, it's being
Anything else?
recorded. About the end.
Okay, let's see if I can get this fired up in presentation mode. That would be this little button, I think. There we go. I'm gonna do it right from here, so here we go. Richard Watson, intro and short bio. I'm gonna move along at a pace. I got a lot of slides. We're gonna kind of move fast and yeah.
Zoom doesn't seem to be picking up
Oh,
that, so let's make sure the Zoom.
technology check. 1 second.
Did you end the other slideshow?
I did not.
That's what we need.
This one's.
Yeah, we're done with that.
Please stand by.
The share window is closed. And now,
Were you sitting here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
got two windows open.
Now, you're not on.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, share. Um. I'm gonna adjust the screen, yeah. All right,
Now, you've seen the full slide or the whole? Okay, yeah, perfect, excellent. There we go. And we'll try that again because some of my decks are in different PowerPoint decks. Okay, let's see. Let's do that button and that
I
button.
started presenting now.
Or do I need to use this guy?
That one, so I quit. First presentation.
I'll do that.
Let's try that button.
Let's use that.
Okay, now it's not advancing slides. Oh, there we go. Okay, super short. Oh boy, now it's dark.
You good here?
Yeah, I'm fine. Y'all good out there? There's cookies over there if you fall asleep. I was born and raised near Detroit, Michigan. If you saw the movie 8 Mile, 8 Mile is like the city limits of Detroit, and north of 8 Mile is Oakland County. I grew up at 16 Mile, out Woodward Avenue, in Detroit. I graduated from the University of Michigan School of Engineering. You can see my Go Blues. The green and white, that's the Michigan State guys. The Spartans, that's the other one. This is the Wolverines, recent national champions in football, all that good stuff. And then I moved to Boston. I got my MBA from Boston University, and I lived in Boston for about 10 years, from 1990 to 2000. Moved to California in 2000 and was in Berkeley for a number of years. And then made my way to LA here in 2017 and finally landed in San Pedro in 2021. Got evicted during the moratorium on evictions during the COVID and had to find a place and landed in Pedro, of all places. And it's worked out great. So what I want to do for the rest of this is just kind of tell you some of the things that I've been doing since then. So when I got to San Pedro, I guess the other big piece of my background is I want to let you know about is, so I'm an IT guy, I'm a project manager, I work in the investment and wealth management industry. I have my whole entire career. I got into that in Boston, which is at Fidelity and other places. It's a big thing there. And so when I really got to a certain point in my life and I really wanted to start making a difference in the world, I was really found the call to climate action. Like, I'm very deeply concerned about the pollution burden and the air quality and all the issues that come with that. And the pollution burden that's being put on our natural ecosystems is quite concerning across many different vectors. So I started from the place that I knew, which was investing. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the thoughts I put together on that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I started to do in San Pedro, specifically sort of a city level engagement. And then Measure W is just another way of talking about something interesting happening here in LA County. So if you've never heard of San Pedro, I'll tell you about that. If you've never heard of Measure W, I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then I'm going to wrap up with kind of what I'm doing here. So that's going to give you kind of like where I'm coming from, what I'm bringing to. What I want to do next is Nature Now for the South Bay and Palos Verdes. And what that means is natural habitat installation and restoration. So restoration would be habitats that are already there that we can improve. Installation would be parcels that are not natural habitat now, that could be made natural habitat under the right incentives of carrots and sticks. My approach to this is a full spectrum ecological engagement, right? It's very, when we get into the science of it, we get into individual species and we get into the very specific data sets and so forth. But if you look at what really needs to happen to support life and birds, it's habitat, it's the ecosystems. So let's put our thinking caps on and do full systems analysis and figure out what's really going to make the most difference. I want to leverage the existing policy tools and funding sources that are out there, and I want this to be a community involvement and participation program. This is grassroots. This is people out there doing volunteer work like you all do and have been doing for years, to just get your fingers dirty and get down in it. So let me flip now to, wait, I think I have to close that one. And then I'm gonna have to, that's my Zoom, I'll keep that one open. And go to my next slideshow, which is, what did I say I was gonna do? Impact investing. So I got slideshow up. Well, that's the PDF. Hold on, I want the PowerPoint. We'll do the PowerPoint for that. And we will screen share So, oh, that did work. Are you seeing it on the Zoom as well?
No, you want to do presenter
I
view.
gotta do present in Zoom, okay.
So you need to do presenter in PowerPoint first.
Okay, yeah, okay. Presenter in PowerPoint, boom,
And then now share.
and now share in Zoom, not that one. This one. Share. That one. Okay,
Bingo.
that's kind of cool how Zoom and PowerPoint know how to work with each other. Excellent. Okay, impact investing. What are we talking about here? So, this is a concept that's been around for a long time. The old school hard-nosed economist first, investment first idea is your purpose of your money is to make more money for you. That's why you invest. But there's been a long movement of people who want their money to make an impact in the world beyond just wealth preservation and return on investment for them. This goes back to the Quakers. This had a big surge in the 80s with apartheid and disinvestment from South Africa. And now the acronyms and terminology has come to, is evolved towards ESG, they call it, environmental, social, and governance. And it's really kind of the same four concepts here. That bottom bullet point really gets to the heart of it. Impact investing is how to include non-financial impacts and results from your financial portfolio, said a different way than it's written here. And so why I bring this, or why what I'm bringing to that conversation is the pollution burden, as I mentioned earlier, right? We've got air pollution, water pollution, land pollution. There's been a lot of focus on, carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases leading to global warming and a climate crisis. It's kind of the focus point of this particular deck. But of course, we could be talking about other types of air pollution that cause other types of problems. We could be talking about water pollution and the sources of that, land pollution and the sources and impacts of all that too. Probably the one that worries and scares me the most is that one bullet point very at the bottom. They are out there inventing thousands of new chemicals every year and producing them sometimes in high volume, with not a whole lot of regulation and oversight. They're sort of required to report, but no one's doing the lab work to see how toxic PFAS is, for example. If we'd had the right studies done 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't be having the PFAS problems now. The next PFASs are already being invented in labs today. The current regulatory environment is not going to keep up with the industrial acceleration of that, but that's just one of my own worries about the future. I'm coming at it from the other end, which is kind of fix the habitats and keep that stuff where it belongs, which is nowhere, hopefully. The next thing I wanted to bring to this conversation is really, okay, yes, we all see that pollution burden is tremendously impactful on the world around us. What are we to do about it? We as individuals, there's been a lot of news and a lot of conversation about our consumer choices, our carbon footprint, what car we drive, what do we do with our house, how much travel do we do, where do we buy our electricity, a lot of little things you can do to change your habits and so forth. One of the studies I saw said that all consumer behavior accounts for maybe 1/3 of the total carbon footprint of our current society. So that will get you that'll get you some of the way, but it's not the only way that we can make choices. So advocacy choices and professional choices, we can choose to work our day job, and address the issues that I've been talking about. Advocacy, that's what we're volunteering here. Vote is the number one thing. Vote for the people that are gonna, bring forward the policies and agency programs that are gonna do what you wish would happen, right? And as an element of hope, I do want to point out, sort of in the advocacy bucket there, you can see there are a lot of people out there doing this work, right? There's just massive numbers of thousands and millions of people who are very concerned about the pollution burden and the impacts of that all across our society and our planet. And all there is to do is, get busy and get out there and work together. Okay, now I'm going to pivot a little bit to, again, this is kind of more the investing side of it, right? So one of the things that there is the most widely used benchmark in the investment world is the S&P 500. And this is the 500 largest companies on the US stock exchange by market cap. So, IBM, Facebook, Meta, those are all the famous ones. It used to be, Exxon and GM and IBM and so on and so forth. Every portfolio has a carbon footprint. It may or may not be getting tracked accurately, and it may or may not be getting reported. But S&P actually did go do the research, and this is back in 2017. So my numbers are a little stale, but I think the salient points would still be true if we updated our data for 2024, 2025. Anyway, the point we're getting at here is that the S&P 500 does have a carbon footprint, 1.8 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. CO2 equivalent is the climate scientist way of measuring the total greenhouse effect of all the gases, right? So all gases, or most gases, have a greenhouse effect. And some of them are much stronger, if you will, than carbon dioxide. But when we sort of boil that all down to the total number of gases and their relative, greenhouse effect, we talk about the CO2 equivalent. And in the climate action world, that's a commonly used term to refer to how much, are we talking about. But I'm going to make it in 2 or 3 slides. I'm going to get really brass tacks about what we're really talking about here in terms of carbon footprint. So they reported out this amount of CO2 equivalent carbon footprint in 2017. And that was almost 80 tons per $1 million of market capitalization. And that's important because the next question that I want to get to is, well, what does that mean for me as an investor? Again, this is if I'm taking action as an investor and I want to make a difference in the carbon footprint and the pollution footprint, what would I want to look at? The other salient data point here is, again, I said the S&P 500 isn't the whole carbon footprint. Really, the annual carbon footprint of the United States, according to the EPA, if you can read my footnote, in 2018, I think this was 6.5 billion metric tons of CO2 equivalent gases. You divide by the number of households out there or the number of people out there, and you get these certain figures to just start to get an idea of how much carbon footprint do we allocate per person in this country. Now, again, your consumer choices aren't really what drive that. It's as much about the products you buy and the companies who manufacture that, not least of all oil and gas, not least of all energy production on the grid. Like, we know where the carbon footprint is being generated from. But if you take it out, if you divide that all out by the number of people in the country, that's what you get. Because in the end, we're all responsible for all of it, right? So the question that I really wanted to get to, and this gets back to, like, okay, as an investor or as an individual, where do I want to focus my choices? Should I be concerned about my consumer behavior? Should I get out there and be more of an advocate? Should I change jobs? Or what's going on with my portfolio? And the reason why I did this whole deck was because people forget about their portfolio as a driver of the challenges that we're facing. And I wanted to get to this number, which is, okay, at what point does the portfolio matter more than the individual consumer behavior? And this is back of a napkin type stuff, right? But I just wanted to get a ballpark figure on it. It's not 5 million, it's not $1 million, it's somewhere in the ballpark of $500,000 of a 401k or an IRA or a portfolio invested in stocks and bonds. It may or may not be the S&P 500. It may be, any whatever your investment choices may be. But when you start to get to have, like, most working, most professionals, Americans are working towards having a 401k so they can retire, and a balance of like 500,000 by the time you get to retirement is kind of a bare minimum, frankly, because I'm also a financial advisor on the side. And I would tell anybody, if you don't have that amount of money, don't retire, even if your house is paid for. So again, this is really just kind of like to give ourselves a little bit of a guideline to where do I stand and what matters, where are my choices going to matter? So for lower income households, which is half of the wage earners in America, they don't have that kind of money. They don't have to worry about their investment portfolio and the carbon footprint of that. So they can look at their consumer behavior or their advocacy. For middle class and mass affluent investors, which is really the 50th to 80th percentile, you start to get into this. Probably many people do have something in the ballpark of $500,000 or a lot more in their investment portfolio. And so it starts to become relevant, I think, for regular Americans to really think about the investment side of this equation. And then, of course, affluent and high net worth individuals, okay, it's a whole nother world, right? Yes, they have way more than $500,000, they also have a massive carbon footprint on as a consumer behaviors, right? They own way more real estate. They have way much more square footage, multiple houses. They travel a whole lot. Air travel alone is just talk about your personal carbon footprint. Measure how many miles you travel, and that'll give you a rough idea, whether it's air or car. So last little bit on this episode is how much carbon are we talking about, man? I don't even get this CO2 equivalent thing, right? So let's talk about high-grade bituminous coal, an actual rock made out of pretty much the best carbon you can get that's still a rock. By the way, almost 50% of the coal burned in the US, which is mostly for energy production, is high-grade bituminous coal. This is a technical term from the world of minerals and commodities. And there's a little bit of science in here, right? So how much CO2 do you get from a certain amount of carbon, and how heavy is it, right? Because all this CO2 equivalent stuff is in tonnage, right? So we want to talk about tons of carbon and tons of CO2. Well, that's what the 12 grams per mole or the 44 grams per mole. A mole is an exact number of atoms or molecules of that substance. Free cookie for anyone who can tell me how many atoms are in a mole.
6 something times 10 to the 23rd.
You got it. And what do we call that? Who came up with that number?
Avogadro.
Avogadro's number, exactly. So this is hard science, people. Let me get back in front of the camera. Hi. Let's see, where was I going with that? Okay, so the calculations. That's just your input data. So what we're really talking about is, if you go back to that other slide, you look at that last calculation line, which is, I can't show it, right above where it says result, 17.4 tons of CO2. That's what we calculated on the other slide, is the median footprint of an individual in the United States based on the 6.5 billion tons for the whole country, right? And if you just do the math, do the math there. And by the way, I'm doing this in pickup truck loads, by the way. We're making it real. How many pickup truck loads of high-grade bituminous coal are you responsible for every year? And the answer is 3.74 per individual on average. So that's like every quarter, every 3 months, somebody pulls up in a pickup truck and they dump it in your front yard. That is your share of the carbon footprint equivalent that's going into our atmosphere. You can do anything you want with that except burn it. You're on your own. Dig a hole. Put it back where it came from. Okay, so this is just the kind of stuff I just I want to share with you, kind of my thought process and what kind of stuff I think about and work on around here. Do you guys want to see the San Pedro one, or go straight to the Measure W county-wide analysis?
Let's go Pedro first.
Okay.
I worked with guys that lived in Pedro.
All right, let's see if I didn't lose where I am here. Am I still on Zoom? I hope I didn't log out. No, it just stopped.
A lot of
screen sharing.
discussions
Okay,
on
good.
it.
So I'll open the PowerPoint, go to center mode, and then share that one.
Okay, Pedro, presenter mode. And then I gotta come out of full screen mode to get back to Zoom. Zoom. 1 second, we're going to Zoom. I'm gonna tell people whenever they're screen sharing, narrate every click. Oh, did I log out of Zoom? No,
No, you didn't log out of Zoom, but you did just choose the right window.
clicked the wrong one. Narrate every click so people can follow along and not start multitasking and doing something else while you're futzing around. That's my tip of the day. Okay, we're gonna talk about the San Pedro Urban Greening Implementation Plan. And this is the 2023 assessment. Now, what are we talking about here? Oops, back up one side. The SPUGIP is a plan, a 144-page document that was funded by the city and farmed out to the LA Conservation Corps to put together. There was a big community involvement to put together the greening plan in the first place. All 3 of the neighborhood councils in San Pedro, the city councilman's office itself got involved. They did 3 community input sessions, 100+ participants. And they all came up with, you know, an ask of what would you like to see done? And they came up with 32 specific opportunities to improve green spaces across San Pedro. And I like this because this is what I have in mind when I say natural now. If you want to make a difference in the community, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen parcel by parcel. It's great if the Land Conservancy already has a contract with the agencies who make the decisions for that parcel, and you don't have to go through all the red tape of owners and building codes and funding sources and all that. Those are the easy ones. We're gonna look at some of the harder ones to tackle here in a minute. And so 32, so then this assessment was about 5 or 8 years after the plan was first put together, an assessment of how did we do in 5 or 8 years against the plan that was created about 10 years ago. So this map's a little hard to read, but if you can tell, this is San Pedro. Along the right is the harbor. Point Furman is at the very bottom. And all those little blue dots are one of the 32 specific locations that the community said, do something with this disaster. Or maybe it's just a vacant lot and do something with this opportunity because it's kind of low hanging fruit. And let's see, I have a couple more slides here to just show you. So if you zoom in on, this is, so the 110 coming in from the top and the 47 going over to the bridge to the right. So that's Gaffey Canyon, that big green blob is all the area in between the freeway ramps and so forth. So there's like how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, I say like 8 or 10 different specific parcels called out there as a place to do something. And actually you'll see in their assessment in a minute, a lot of these projects got done or something got done. Anyway, here's a couple other little zoom ins. The one on the left is downtown San Pedro. So that's the green line, horizontal lines are 6th Street and 7th Street. And the blue vertical line there is Harbor Boulevard. A lot of work got done there in the last 10 years, if you've ever been down that way lately. And then the one on the right is calling out specific numbers. So that's actually not downtown. That's North Gaffey. So that 20 on the left, that's Home Depot on North Gaffey. And if you look at where that little freeway, that blue and red freeway sign is, that open space to the left of that, that's the Field of Dreams. It's a soccer field up there. And just below that is the San Pedro Community Garden. 8 acres, over 200 plots. I have one of them. I was out there the other day. And we're growing food and we're building habitat out there. And then, the other big call out here is, maybe you didn't hear, but that whole big set of tank fields kind of right in the middle of this picture, that's the Phillips 66 refinery that is closing. They are selling that land off to developers to do something else with it. Now, I doubt it'll be residential because I don't know what the cleanups would have to be, but talk about an opportunity to have something happen, you know, to put 6 inches of topsoil and then you can grow some light habitat on top of it. That's actually kind of best practices these days for toxic waste sites. Sequester it in place with clay, keep it from moving. So this is the assessment, right? So we had, like I said, we had the 32 opportunities. This is the first 10 of them. It kind of turns out, and I don't want to make too much of this because they kind of were already planning on doing these projects anyway. And they went out and they got the community involvement and they got people on board to agree that the stuff they were doing was stuff that the community wanted. So this wasn't totally a grassroots, you know, storm the Bastille, get the city to do something here. But they did a lot of cool projects. And they didn't do some other ones. So orange means they didn't get to that one yet, right? So there's the 32 assessments. And then let's see what we have on observations. So, you know, a couple of call outs, you know, that there's some stuff in this particular assessment, you know, that we called out, say, hey, don't use the list of species here. Go to California Native Plant Society to get the real list, the CalScape list of plants to actually use. Go to the city LA Urban Forestry Division, not what this plan says. Go to, you know, go to the places that are actually actively updating their plans, because this SPUGIP was really kind of just a point in time thing. But it really was an eye opener of how things work at the city and how things work in government to get stuff done like that.
And whose recommendations were they?
So this was the community actually recommended these particular parcels, and they had 3 community engagement sessions, over 100 people. And people were whiteboarding. I mean, I saw the working materials, right? They had charts out and easels and Post-it notes. I mean, there was actual engagement.
Richard, who performed the assessment that came up with those recommendations at the end?
I think they worked with LA Conservation Corps as the lead agency for both pieces of it, and they hired out this one particular firm or guy to do the write-up itself. He sort of took all the information and produced the artifact. There's a website too. It's called a Green San Pedro. It's still out there. It hasn't changed in like 10 years. I called the guy about, oops, did it again. Called the guy to get the keys to that website, and he didn't return my call. Because actually the city owns it, because the city paid for the whole thing. And I wanted to tell him, hey, I'm with the city council and that's mine. Give it to me, but I didn't really follow. I'm not that kind of guy, actually. Must have. Okay, let's see if I got one more, and then we'll see if I can get this into, I got presenter mode, I got Zoom, I got share. Okay, now we're going countywide. And it's a slightly different take. So let's go. Excellent. I like this one too. I love blue. My favorite color for sure. Okay. So what is Measure W? It's a countywide tax assessment. It's a property tax assessment. It's a 2.5 cents per square foot of impermeable surfaces. So parklands, open space, green space. And I don't know how they measure this exactly, but if you own property and you pay taxes, it's on there. I guarantee it, because there's money coming in, quite a lot of it. And so the theory is, if you deign to build a structure and throw your perfectly good rainwater into the street where the county has to deal with it, you have to pay for the county to go build the infrastructure to then go deal with the water that you chose not to sequester in place. Personally, I like to sequester my water in place, but my structure, I rent, and I can't modify my structures. I can't do anything with that. Anyway, this is a permanent property tax. There was Prop O maybe 10, 15 years ago. A lot of great water work projects got done. Lake Machado got the initial round or a couple rounds. That was like a one-time bond issuance, and then that money sort of ran out eventually. And it's gone now, for the most part, I think, although no one can know for sure. Measure W is every year there's money coming in, $200, $300 million a year. And there's an administrative structure now set up to decide what to do with all that money. And so this is basically an introduction of what kind of stuff have they been doing with that. This has only been around since, what, 2018. And that's a short period of time for an administration to get all set up and go start spending money. Here in South Bay, so the entire county is divided into 9 different watershed areas, and they roughly map to the actual watersheds of the LA River and the Verdugo Wash and the Tujunga Wash and the Dominguez Channel. The South Bay is sort of like a million tiny watersheds right along the coast. And so, but the South Bay watershed is one of them. And the West Basin Water District, if you're familiar with that water authority over here, they're actually one of the most amazing water authorities in the country. They make better water than most places. Surf Riders and Heal the Bay is another agency that they sort of collaborate on running this. Here's a map. The red line on the map on the left is the area of the South Bay watershed. Now, a pelican flying by the peninsula and glancing down might not be able to tell the difference between that area map and the area map of this chapter. It's just coincidence, but I did happen to notice. I think the biggest difference is Wilmington. So this includes Wilmington, and I think Wilmington's in the Long Beach chapter for whatever reason. But anyway, it's pretty close. And you probably would know better. The map on the right is a little bit blurry because it's 2 different heat maps at the same time, but it's really trying to show where this is Cal EnviroScreen. And so at the state level, one of the things that they've done is try to direct certain environmental mitigation and resilience programs into the areas that are the most impacted. And in order to do that, they had to measure the areas that are most impacted by air quality, projections of increases of heat and decreases of water, or whatever the models, the weather models say, And so not surprisingly, the part near the coast is like gonna be better off, relatively speaking, than the parts further inland in the city. And so that actually drives a huge chunk of money that flows through the Strategic Growth Council, which I don't have a deck on. Maybe we'll talk about that some other day. But that's a state level thing. We're not going to do state today. We're just sticking with city and county. So Safe Clean Water is the name of the program that they run all this Measure W money through. The pie chart on the left is what they spend that money on, and half of it is infrastructure. I mean, like actual pipes and plumbing and storm drains and all the water management infrastructure. It's hard assets going on the ground. And then they got technical resources program and scientific studies. So the technical resources program is really kind of like the design portion of the install projects, right? They work with the various agencies and entities to kind of figure out what to do, and that's the technical resources part. And then they go do it, and that's the infrastructure part. And the scientific studies, that actually would be cool to get involved in. By the way, this entire $200-300 million is competitive grants. So everybody who wants some of this money, who has a project that meets the criteria for stormwater improvements, gets a chance to go step up to the plate and take a swing. Now, this chart, and I know these numbers are really tiny, but that is every city in LA County. It's about 80 or 90 of them. And the number is the amount of money paid into the Measure W program from that city in whatever year this was, right? 22, 23. So Torrance is 2.1 million. Where's Redondo? Fourth from the top, 700 something thousand. Now, the rules for Measure W are that the money going back out is supposed to go in proportion to the money that came in. So you got the city of LA taking a 36 million chunk out of that 111. We don't know where that money goes. But every other city, like you should be able to go, especially if you're close to City Hall, Brad, and are in there. Is that city getting any of that money, and what are they doing with it? It's just always a good question to ask your elected leaders. What are you doing with that money that we know you have? Okay, now we get to something kind of like that SPUGIP thing, but this is the map of projects that have actually already been done with Measure W money in our South Bay area. And the map's a little bit tough to read there, but you can see this is Lake Machado, the big green blob in the middle with the golf course next to it. Up here is the Rancho Palos Verdes Reservoir. It's got a lid on it. It's not out of commission. It's got, did you know that open air reservoirs are grandfathered in, but they're not considered safe in the state of California any longer? Rancho put a lid on theirs. City of, I don't know if it's county or city, but there's a huge aquifer being built out of concrete over by Forest Hills around Burbank side of Griffith Park. If you drive along the 101, I drove by it for years and I was like, what are they building? What are they building? What are they building? It looked like it's massive. It's a 150 million gallon storage tank for the city to have underground aquifers. They're doing something over at the Torrance Airport. They're really just going to catch street water runoff. Here's the thing with rainwater. It is pure, crystal clean drinking water while it's in the air. As soon as it hits ground, it's considered contaminated. Doesn't matter what it landed on or where it went. It's contaminated. So this project here at Torrance is actually going to be a big catch basin for a good chunk of that watershed, probably coming off of the back of the PV here. And they're gonna have tanks here for storage, but they're basically going to ship it over to the county treatment facility, which is over here in right, this might be it here.
LA County's in?
Yeah, over in Carson. Yeah, I think this is Figueroa here because it's coming right off the edge of the port. I think that's it. So it's 2 or 3 in Wilmington, 2 or 3 up on the hill here. And so yeah, there's just projects being done all the time. So again, the concept here is, where exactly is the project happening? Who's paying for it? Who's lining up to do the work, right? And I will say one more thing about Measure W. It's not a free-for-all. The projects that get done, this is just a city of Los Angeles. In 1 year, how many motions passed LA City Council related to Measure W? That's a lot. So this city is very involved in that because it's a lot of money. So yeah, the Measure W, it's not a free-for-all of anything you can think of. There's also, before they had Measure W, there's what they call the Watershed Management Plan. And this is a state mandated thing. And you knew this. LA County has been recharging our local underground aquifer since 1962. We've been at it for, what is that now? 60 years, 65 years. There's 150 or so injection wells on both sides of the PV, on the Dominguez Channel side and on the Redondo side, pumping fresh water in to keep saltwater intrusion out from the aquifers underneath the city of LA. Here's a short history of LA. Native people, ranchers, cows ate all the vegetation and didn't get much nutrition out of it. Farmers came and dug wells, tapped out all the water in a few decades. Industry came in, polluted the hell out of everything before about 1960 something. You didn't need permits to dump your crap in your back lot. And that all seeped into the empty aquifers that the farmers had pumped out. And then in about the 50s, there started being lawsuits about this stuff and the Montrose famous cases and so forth. And that's when the courts and the EPA got created. And so things happened over time. But now we're actually cognizant about the value of fresh water underground. And there's a lot being done. There's a couple of big spreading fields, which means just big open areas where they let the water seep down. Anyway, my point is there's a watershed management plan for every drop. And the people who get funded through Measure W are the people who are proposing projects that are already consistent with the plan that was already decided. So it's a little bit of kind of like, okay, you can come and do the work that they want to do. So the question then becomes, how do you get the plan changed? And that's another 10-year process started, everything they're working on now, they decided 10 years ago. So anything you want done, start working on it now, and it might be part of the plan 10 years from now. That's the basic rule of thumb that I was told. And LA doubled, the city of LA doubled that. So anyway, that's the short version of Measure W. And I will go back to where I started, which is natural now. Whoop. This guy, and this guy. Presentation mode, screen share mode. Getting good at this, man. So yeah, that's just a quick run through of the stuff that I've been working on lately. And I'm super excited to be part of this chapter and Audubon Society. I was so happy when Ann was sharing with me that the Audubon National and in large part, from push from local chapters like this is really on the habitat. They're really getting with the habitat restoration perspective. How it's not just about any one individual endangered species. And by the way, state of California environmental protection law aligns with this. The federal is still at the list of endangered species. California law is habitat zones and it's protections of habitats. And so it doesn't really matter what's living there or not at any given point in time. If it's a unique habitat, of which there is a lot in the Mediterranean, zone that we live in, I think we've got policy behind us. There are funding sources out there for hundreds of millions of dollars. And all it really takes, I think, to put 2 and 2 together is groups like this to say, hey, these are the projects that we want to see done. These are the agencies we want to work with. These are the people doing good work, and give us the opportunity to really see our community flourish for ourselves and for all the habitat and wildlife and birds around us. So I'll tell you more about natural now, and I'll work with you all on kind of putting this together. I got some ideas about how to move it forward from here, but this is kind of like where I brought with and where I'm at right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Get the light on now.
So I wanna.
Let's do questions. Yes.
Here, because you delved right into my first 33 years of professional work.
Okay.
I worked at sanitation districts, Orange County Sanitation, and City of LA, Hyperion Treatment Plant, and sure you've all heard about it. And What's so funny, they had that, I saw pictures of a huge spill in the plant. And, the local residents were having trouble with the stink, and I'm going, it always smells. Every treatment plant I've been on smells, but the residents had had so much that it really bothered them. But, so all that experience,
I didn't have anything, I stuck it there.
I have Dino, I'm happy.
Did you have the microphone still, Ann?
No, I put it up there.
Sorry. I want people to be able to make sure they can hear.
There's another one, was that, and that's where.
Where did it
I
go?
might have dropped it.
Kind of kicking around. Is that this guy? No.
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, good catch. Since you're talking, let's make sure people can hear
Turn it
you.
off, so I gotta turn it on.
What's your question?
I have no question. I'm making a comment. It's an overview. There we go. That dovetail tightly with what Richard talked about, because this is my field. The major sanitation agencies here in Southern California includes City of LA, Hyperion Treatment Plant. They also have a couple of smaller plants. LA County Sand, which is right here off of Figueroa. Orange County Sand is, further south, their pipe is right off the Santa Ana River. They extended it to 5 miles offshore right before I started working for them. And then there's San Diego, and there's some up coast in, I'm trying to think, it's Santa Monica is in the LA County sanitation. Some of these things will kind of go like this, depending on the hydraulics. But anyway, they're all producing clean water. But the problem is, and when I was working, I would call it the pipes were discharging into the ocean, what I called gerrymandered rivers. The water came from the California Water Project. We all heard about when Trump pulled this stupid thing to for, what was it? 2.5 billion gallons in a 3-day period out of a reservoir that is used for summertime irrigation by the farmers. Instead, he sent it to the city of LA. But the problem is the conveyance that he used did not go to the city of LA water because it was a totally different system. You have the federal system, like Fremont Lake, it's massive. You go on the west side of the Sierras, and there's these huge.
And could we bring it back to the South Bay and what perhaps the chapter could do in collaboration with the projects?
Anyway, the focus on these major guys are to treat the water and put it back into the system instead of dumping it into the ocean. So I wanted to make that kind of, I thought it connected with everything you had to say. The other thing I wanted to say is individuals can make a difference. I rode my bike to work for decades, had a blast, but also the only CO2 I utilized was, really, that is, I was huffing and puffing up and down the river. I've got native plants in my garden. I thought when I put it in, some of the neighbors would copy. No. Been there 25 years, but I have 25-year-old purple sage, and those roots go down in a subcluster and a lot of CO2. Whenever I need sage for cooking, I like to cook, I just go out and take out how many leaves I want. And there's a lot you can do. I hang up some of my clothing to let it air dry. I buy fresh foods and stuff like that, and Okay, today at lunch I bought a bag of jalapeno potato chips. Typically, I don't do that. But anyways, you can approach it with your life and see how you can make it work. So everybody can do that. And what's really fun in our house, we have two really young cats. And they can't get outside. They have a catio and all that. We have our back window goes down to nearly the floor, so they can sit there and watch. And they're all excited right now because the dark-eyed juncos have built and are building a nest. I've got wildlife in my yard. None of my neighbors do. I've got them in my yard because I've got this kind of a clean environment going. I've got the native plants. I've got the food. The warblers managed to find all kinds of insects off of the bushes in our yard. And of course the cats go nuts. They haven't quite figured out. They ain't getting to any of those birdies. But just today, a squirrel was sitting on the fence that divides our yard with the neighbors. And the cat was going, yeah. She's all excited. And then I saw her take off. She's figured it out. If she runs down the hallway to the catio, she can beat the squirrel to the backyard. So this has been a whole lot of fun for me, a lot of fun. And, you know, I think I've lowered my CO2 footprint quite a bit. So that's what you guys can do. When you don't own your house, just plant the stuff and let the landlord go, oh, what happened here? I don't know, I just grew.
Well, you've lowered your cortisol, your blood pressure too. I mean, I wasn't gonna go into the human health benefits of living in and around nature. And like, I think you just pointed to the difference between having a well-manicured lawn and a natural habitat wildlife, 10 by 10 parcel on your front or backyard. The amount of activity is astronomically different, right? And the engagement for your own, I would consider it an aspect of natural wisdom and I think it's almost universal that people feel more relaxed and calm in nature. I've heard people say they hate nature, they don't want to go there, they're city dwellers. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not most people that I meet.
I have a lot of fun in the yard and I just do weeding. And didn't get much weeding done this winter.
I think we're at a turning point in human society where it's been thousands of years of building the walls and building ourselves habitats, human habitats that are separate from nature. And I think we've hit the limit, the logical extension of that. I think some people will keep pushing it, but we'll go virtual with it, right? But yeah, I think people are going to kind of realize that no, there's nowhere else to go. Like, this is where it is. Let's make it work right here. And have my outdoors look like that wall.
I liked what you were saying about the ESG funds.
Yeah.
When I was on the board of directors of California State PTA a couple terms ago, we have I think it was a $4.3 million investment portfolio. And we moved a large percentage of that into an ESG fund.
Yeah.
Which actually is hard to do in some places because depending on where your money is, they may not have ESG funds. Or it's an ESG or it's a semi-ESG fund, but it still might have some money in nuclear, or it still might have some investments in a company that is associated with tobacco. And so it's kind of interesting, but are there funds now that are more low carbon funds instead of just ESG? Is there like a fund?
Yeah, actually, the whole second half of that presentation gets into factor analysis. Right, so there's been a big thing lately with large language models and AIs are becoming this whole big thing. The investment industry had small quant models 25 years ago and churned all the data that is available to indicate anything you'd want to, any predictive quality in any piece of data that is available has already been analyzed for its predictive value. And so for investment returns, right? And so that's why it's really hard, it always was hard, but now it's virtually impossible to get excess returns than say the S&P 500 or adjusted for risk. You're basically buying the basket that's out there. But now we have non-financial data and non-financial outcomes, right? So I started to introduce the concept of carbon footprint. And yes, water usage, energy usage, carbon footprint, scope, they've got scope 1 and scope 2 and scope 3 analysis of the company's suppliers, the company's customers. And there's also now global frameworks that are being proposed for the actual reporting, kind of like your balance sheet and income statement for financials. There are efforts that are getting traction. It's still voluntary, but for companies to self-report these standardized sets of metrics that then feed themselves into the investment choices that people want to make. It's still hard to do locally. If you want to like find some investment that's going to actually make a difference here in LA or South Bay, other than muni bonds or green bonds issued by a particular agency for a particular project, it's hard to get that granular. But yeah, there's an explosion of new analytics out there in the space to find the factors that drive the outcomes that people are interested in attaching to their portfolio.
Does anybody else have anything you want to say, ask?
I want to ask you about what was in an email you sent and the possibility of working some parcel maybe around the Cabrillo Museum. Is that one of the projects listed?
It's not, and it wasn't. So I'll tell you, being in San Pedro, I'll give you a quick background of what I've come to learn to know about the Port of Los Angeles. They're a landlord. All they do is lease out their parcels to shipping companies. There's an oil factory, oil refinery in there. There's chemical plants. There are marinas. There are people, several thousand people who live there. And so that parcel, so over by Cabrillo Beach is 3 acres of marsh habitat preservation. The whole port was about a 3,000 acre development. I think it's bigger now, but that was like the 0.1% that they set aside to preserve the marsh that was used to be the entire thing.
That's the Salinas?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so it's fenced off and you can't even go, no humans, no dogs are allowed in there because birds nest and all that kind of stuff. Right next to that is, I call it the Boy Scout building, right? It's the youth center, and there's not just the Boy Scouts there, but there's camping, there's a pool, the Chinese Dragon Boat Club is there and stuff. But that is like another 7 acres maybe, and then after that, you've got the DoubleTree. And a road, and the road that comes down there in a parking lot. And so the Port of Los Angeles has decided they are not renewing the lease for the Scouts of America. They are looking for investors to redevelop that building and turn it into something else. And what they had in mind was like a high-end restaurant thing, right? They want, because to be honest, in fairness to the port, they are legally required to kind of, it's like the port authorities are like the original economic development zones. So when 100, 200 years ago, when the state said, okay, you are allowed to put a port there, no one else can do ports. You have to do a port, and you have to do a port. Your port has to support commerce and fishing and drayage. Those are the original 3 uses. Back in the 90s, they got their port authority expanded. They can pretty much do anything except residential now. So I'm not sure how they get away with the marinas, but yeah, they're looking for a new tenant and a redevelopment plan for that parcel. Now, there's a huge bed of eelgrass out in front of that. And if you go down there, it's just like about 40 or 50 birds at any given time at sunset are going to be in there right out on the water, doing whatever's going on there. So from a habitat preservation perspective, the absolute gold piece of habitat that you're never going to get a shot at is the beach. The point where the ocean hits the land. Now, on the PV, it's mostly cliffs, and there's more opportunity to do stuff there. But over where it's beach, like human beings want that beach for themselves. So there's a shot at this one little like 400 yards of beach to do something with the port and for the port. Now, from a grants perspective, there's also the port runs the community investment program. About $1 million a year or so. And okay, grants are usually competitive, and if it's fill out the application and submit your bid and get your money, and you may or may not get it, it can seem competitive. But the port basically wants to support as many local nonprofits as they can that are doing work right in and around the port. Right, it's gotta be what they call the Tidelands Nexus rule of their port authority, and that's how they're able to like give away this money. So if you write something up and you say, hey, we want to do habitat restoration, and it's consistent with your Tidelands Nexus, and here's what we want to do with 20 yards offshore and 20 yards up the beach. Here's what we want to do to have the humans over there and have birds over here. That's kind of my idea of it. And they want to give away the money. You just got to come up with a good plan. Give them an excuse to cut the check, and they will. That's my attitude towards get that particular funding opportunity. So it just came up last week, and the deadline's like end of March.
Right.
And tomorrow night, I'm going to be on a call listening to the port describe this funding program.
Right.
I've actually been on this call a couple times a couple years ago. And so I kind of get it. I've even submitted a grant, I think, in conjunction with my garden people, and win-win. But yeah, I want to go for it, and I want to see what makes sense. So what I need is what's the right way to do a beach from a habitat restoration perspective? And I think probably the right answer is, well, you leave it a beach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so can you, I couldn't quite follow, explain where this area is. Yeah, I'm familiar with the Cabrillo Beach and.
Yeah.
all that, but-
Yeah, so you know the parking lot, right? And the Scabiro being frame, you know the back exit out of the parking lot?
Mhm, yeah, it's kind of
Uh,
long and narrow.
Yeah, so the first thing you pass is and there's a fence along the whole way. The first little bit is this protected marsh mudflats. And the next little bit, the only building you're gonna pass is this. It's currently leased out to the Scouts of America. And it's a big building, right? I mean, I was in it the other day. So was Mike Galvin, the economic development guy from the port. He was measuring for blinds. But yeah, they have, you don't really realize it, but then when you go, so you get to the end of that road and you can turn right to go like to the LA Yacht Club and their parking lot there. And if you go left and you can pull into the Doubletree, or, so if you turn right and there's a parking lot there and you can get up to like the side of this beach and you can look down it, and then, so it's less than a half mile, and there's the boat launch, and then, so yeah, there's really only two things between that parking lot and the boat launch. The mud flat and this youth center. And it's, I want to say 7 acres. I love measuring acres. By the way, UCLA South Bay campus is 36 acres. That's that to me, that's the measure, man. How many acres of preservation did you do? And how much carbon footprint and how many birds and all that. There's plenty of other metrics to bring in, but it's all about the acreage.
So I would take a look at the flushing that you get coming through,
Mhm.
and what the sediment types are there.
Mhm.
The weak fine particles and maybe high clay content. And will you get the, I'm thinking beach plants, so it's sandy beach. It's likely okay because, you've got the right in front of Cabrillo
Mhm.
Aquarium right there, so for sandy.
So it is sandy already, and I think kind of naturally.
Yeah.
And the building has a jetty that sticks out. And, you can do like canoes and stuff off of that. And so I'm thinking just basically do like they did over at Cabrillo Beach, right? Picnic area, parking lot. What my contacts who talk to the port about this say, okay, they know they're not gonna get some big, restaurant group to come in and redevelop it into a high-end whatever. What the next best thing would be high volume usage by the local community.
Water
And
sports.
mhm. Well, they've got, motorsports, is that what you said? Water sports, yeah. Well, they got the boat launch there and they've got,
The marina is right there.
and the marina's right there
Yeah.
too, yeah.
There's
So
all
I don't know,
kinds of
I just think access
Already.
to it with a nature protected area, just basically put more nature protected area on the other side, so do something with the up above. And have there be a beach access point, kind of like the Cabrillo Beach that's already there. the inner harbor, not the outer harbor one. And then also have part of it from like where that jetty sticks out all the way around to the rock wall of the marina, right? So it's not just the beach, but it wraps around in that little pocket and have that all be,
How deep is it in that particular area?
I haven't done my soundings yet. It's pretty shallow.
Is that the Grunion area where people go to see the Grunions come in?
That's
So-
probably, that'll be on the outer harbor, wouldn't it?
Cove-like thing that is between, well, yeah, it's. But you know, don't they wanna make money or something?
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, they're sort of obligated to, if they can't turn it for dollars, they want to at least get it for
I
high
see, so
traffic
you can
usage.
convince them that no one's gonna try and.
Yeah. And they put it out for bid. They already put out the RFP. Nobody bid on it.
Oh, okay.
So they're like, okay, well, now what are we gonna do?
Also, maybe, also you have a better chance, you're saying. because-
So there's a couple other factoids about the port, right? So just last year, so you know about the West Harbor development, right? The big things they're putting there. That's only 40 acres out of a 400-acre land use plan that they published just last year from Bridge to Breakwater. Like the entire San Pedro waterfront is about 400 and something acres that they control. And they're deciding, they're making redevelopment decisions as a landlord for every single one of them. And this whole big brewery, restaurant, whatever thingy is one of them. But that's only 40 acres of it. When they came out with the plan, I went up and I said, hey, I got one ask from the neighborhood. 1%. I want you to take 1% of that 400 acres and allocate it for new natural habitat restoration. Not the 12 acres or so that you already have in little bits and chunks here and there, but come up with 4 acres of new land. And that's one of them. It's one of the potentials for that.
Yeah, I was wondering if any, wading birds could be put in that area.
Well, I think a little bit of scientific observation might be in order here.
Absolutely.
When's our next bird watching? How do I get on the list of scheduling when and where I need to go bird watching?
Well,
I'm sure there are times of year that are better than others. I'll, in all honesty, as full disclosure, I'm not an avid birder. I love nature. I love habitats. I said it the other week, I watch the birds when they watch me, which is like all the time. I came to find.
There's still time for you.
Yeah, okay. So give me my kit, give me my little checklist and I'll get out there and do it. But,
Well, maybe we should have a little field trip down there. Take a look anyway.
Presumably, there's a little bit of data on that existing protected marsh area, I would think, right?
and Cabrillo Marine Aquarium manages that on behalf of the port. That's why I want to reach out to them. The other thing I know about the port is they are required by law to publish an environmental something or another every 5 years. And this year is the year. Somehow they skipped 2020 because of COVID.
Yeah.
So they're overdue and they owe that report. And I talked to the person who was working on it. They said they got their data, they're done with their data. Now they're doing their write-up and stuff. So that, and they know they have more eelgrass and they know where it is. And that's like their litmus test of, is it healthy or is it dead? The first thing that comes up is the eelgrass, I think, from their perspective. So,
yeah, so talking to their staff will be really helpful.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're having any trouble finding them, but I know the folks.
yeah, I want to get in touch with them soon. It's like I said, the problem with these grant things is you find out about them and you have like 60 days to pull it all together. And
Always.
yeah, that's the way it is in the grant world. And this is grant season, like so many programs, first half of the year. And then they get all their grants and then they do their awards. It's just an annual cycle that I've come to find. So we'll see what we can do this year and maybe we can get our ducks in a row. I know you had done a grant last year. So maybe there's some write-up material already, just profile type of stuff.
Yeah.
See, I
we-
had a
we can
loss.
create it.
I worked on hard money. I never had to get grants.
Mm.
I don't know how to do them.
It's a project plan.
Yeah.
I'm a project manager. You got a vision statement and what are you gonna do with the money?
What are the metrics so that we know you did it?
Yes. And who is gonna hold you accountable? And then there's always, here's what I found, it's interesting. There's always the fiscal authority and the grant operator. Many of the grants that I've dealt with is that they do that at the state level. This is how they do it, right? You gotta go find a fiscal authority. They are gonna get the metrics of your performance. They are gonna get the money. They're not gonna do any of the work. You're gonna do all the work. This other party is gonna be the fiscal authority and they're gonna take like a third of the grant money in order to administer it. To just keep an eye on you. This is like outsourced bureaucracy. But that's the way it works. So if you need 3 million, you need 2 million, you ask for 3, and then you pay those guys and you get your 2. That's how it works.
And what's great is you have a clear idea on how all that works.
I have, some naive assumptions about the whole process, I'm sure. But yes, I'm willing to go to bat and let's get something going, just as a, see what it takes.
So when it comes to implementing this project, I think the staff at Cabrillo will be really huge help.
Yes.
Because they've been working in that area, they know what the sediments are like and what the water's flowing in and out and all that. At one point, so when I was still with the city, they were discovering contaminated water bubbling up from the Sandy Beach area. There was some leaky pipe that they had to find. And it'd been like that for, what's wrong?
I researched that and I don't know if they ever found it. They were like, we tried 3 different things. It's just natural occurring toxins. Not really, but they just.
Well, maybe we should, after the session you're gonna have tomorrow, maybe we should collaborate and have maybe a phone meeting or something
Yeah, great
to
idea.
look forward to see if we can do
Debrief
something with the
for
grant,
sure.
yeah.
Scouts in it.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
probably know all sorts of.
Well, I went in there a few
Oh,
months
where
ago.
the- where the bodies are buried. I don't
They
know.
didn't know their lease wasn't being renewed, and I had to be the guy to tell the guys on staff. I was like, sorry to tell you this, but this is not a hearsay thing, I'm pretty sure. Anyway,
So
yeah,
it's-
but,
Why is it not considered a good community service?
I don't know. I
Like
don't know.
my daughter's Girl Scout troop spent a weekend.
Yeah, no, I think the scouts could be part of, so the project I'm talking about wouldn't be a redevelopment of a whole parcel. Not this year, we'll work on it for next year maybe. But the scouts are willing to be a tenant and a partner into anything that happens, and I'm sure they would love to still have access, and I'm sure they have a lot of programs and groups and non-scout groups that come through and use it too. I think it's, like I said, secondhand, I heard what the port looking for is a little bit more public participation rather than kind of just a limited group.
As far as tonight's program goes, does anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, we should probably wrap it up.
But I do want to say one thing, Julian spent a fair amount of effort and he's using a thing called Constant Contact that enables organizations to use email and reach out to people and on a regular basis. We're looking at maybe 3 times a month for email. And you might see some nice product coming from him. And I plan to put that in my little slideshow.
That's quite all right, yeah. Well, what it means is if we have your email address, you'll start to get some more professional looking emails announcing the program meetings, the newsletter when it comes out,
Field trip to.
field trips coming up, bird watch, pointing you to the schedule, pointing you to our website. So if you're getting those, we welcome any feedback you might have. Good.
Push that forward. So you can hear about more activities.
Mhm.
I didn't even know when I started this president job that she had field trips going. I just kind of had to. I had to figure it out. So,
Well, that's a big part of what we do, right? Get people out there.
Any final thoughts?
Nope, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. This is just a fantastic organization. I can tell from just looking around that you people are going to be great to work with. And I'm looking forward to being a part of everything. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah.
And recording.
if anybody wants to fill up their.